Welcome back. My name is Matt. I've been on pause from my typical restorations as I moved a bit unexpectedly last summer, and these past 6 months I've been transforming this 35 by 50 post and frame building from this into this. My new workshop with a lot more space and dedicated areas for metal, electrical, paint, wood, and some general working space. This has been my main priority these past several months, and a lot of nights and weekends to get to this point. And I want to take you through that now. This project really started with a good clean out. 30-year-old building, there was a lot of dirt and grime. There was a room over here about 10 by 15 that was sectioned off. There was a window AC unit in there. I ripped all that out, gave the entire building a good clean, even brought the power washer inside so that I could power wash the inside and really start from a good shell. As I power washed, I looked for areas that might be damaged or have water damage, and that really got me to the roof. The first thing I had to do was get this place dry. And there were really two main issues that I found with the roof. The first, the ridge cap. The ridge cap was that older fiberglass, kind of see-through skylight type material from 30, 40 years ago. It had cracks, some holes in it. A little bit of water was getting through there. The gap up there was a little over a foot, so I did have to find a local metal company that bent me up some ridge to replace all of that. And I ended up using 5 or 6 pieces, used the foam separator from the roof, ran some screws, and really got that all set up. The second major piece on the roof was the rake trim, especially on the north side of the building. That rake trim is that long L-shaped piece that goes from the roof over and corners the side of your building. And the top of that, just over time, had separated from the roof, and a lot of water was getting in under that trim. So I had a lot of damage on the north side of the building, a little bit on the west side of the building as well from that rake trim. So I also got 4 pieces of that 20-foot trim and ended up replacing all of those. I used butyl tape and screws and really got that locked down tight. When I had that open, there were a few boards up in the roof that I replaced that had a little bit of water damage, but overall, the roof in total looked really good. For being a 30-year-old roof, I had a roof guy come out and actually take a look, and really everything looks good. So I'm excited to have the building dry at that point. The next item was the framing. And I ended up framing the entire building in 2 by 6. Since I did a lot of it myself, I was able to use a little more material than I might have otherwise done. I started on this back wall. There weren't any doors or windows to worry about. It was really just building each about 8-foot section of wall, squaring it up on the floor, and then standing it up between the main posts. I ended up using structural screws for all of the wall framing, and it really went up really well. As I mentioned, I used this back wall as a starting point, worked my way down and around, did all the sections that didn't have doors or windows. That really allowed me to get my feet wet and really start getting some of this framed in. The next task was the doors and windows, and I really wanted an entrance on the house side of the building instead of walking up the side to the one entrance that was available. So I ended up installing a new door on the south end of the building here. I ended up framing the door as I would if it was a load-bearing wall with king and jack studs, headers. I did the same thing on the windows. Just using some of the things I learned when I was young. I don't often get to stick build, so doing this project, I just tried to take my time and do it right. Once I had the wall framed up and the rough opening of the door, I ended up cutting out the sheet metal. I used a grinder with a cutoff wheel. I also have some electric metal shears that I use to cut in the rough opening. Then for the door, because I used a 2 by 6 framed wall, plus there's the 2 by 4 on its side, I really needed a 7.5-inch door jamb. The 7.5-inch door jamb is not a standard size, of course, so you can order a custom door, but those are very expensive. So what I ended up doing was getting a 4.5-inch standard 2x4 door. Then I knocked the brick mold off the front and I used some PVC board to actually extend the door jamb to the 7.5 inches that I needed. You have to extend from the brick mold side, the trim side. You can't extend it from the back side because that would inset your door and the door swing would actually hit the door frame when it swung open. So by extending it on the brick mold side, it really allows the door to set flush on the back side of the wall. I used the PVC board, like mentioned, rip it down to the width that I needed, and then I built a frame around the existing door frame on its edge. I clamped and pre-drilled holes, and then I removed that PVC board and I put a bead of glue around this Excel construction adhesive that I find at the store works really well. Put it all back together, clamp it down, and then run my screws in. Then you can put the brick mold back onto the PVC board and then set your door. Works out really well. It's much less expensive than actually buying a custom door. And you can see here, it really turned out great. Next up, as I worked around the wall, was this big picture window here, a 60 by 48 inch. This window was not here, but it will be my main kind of general working area, my main workbench once I'm all said and done. So I really wanted a nice place to look out there, and it gives me a really good view. Again, I did the framing with king stud, jack stud, with the headers, like it was a load-bearing wall, even though it isn't, went a little overboard. But again, I don't get to stick build often and just try to implement some of the things I learned a long time ago. Continued on to this next door along the wall, and that effectively was already there. All I did here was remove the metal door that was there and replace it with a matching door to the door that I put in on the other side. Had to do the same thing, extend the door jamb to 7.5 inches with the PVC board, but it all went really well, and it's a nice looking door and it'll last a lifetime. The other two windows in the corner, those windows were there, but they were smaller, 24 by 24 inch. And they were the older 30-year-old, just that went in out buildings at the time. I removed those. I increased the size of the window to 48 inch by 48 inch. And those are making really nice windows. They turned out really well. Did the same type of framing work that I did in the other window and doors. And it's just gives me a really nice view out to the front yard and also allows a lot of natural light in, which is really nice. As I worked around and did the doors and windows, I had to remove the tin from the outside of the building. And as I framed the entire building, I did remove the tin where there was any water damage or structural damage that I needed to repair. And all of that would have been a huge challenge without the use of this ring shank nail removal tool, which was pretty much a pair of nippers welded onto my slide hammer. And it made removing those nails 100 times easier. Without that, I would have fought with a crowbar, getting those 30-year-old nails out of that wood. Next were the ceiling joists, and oh, was that a chore. I did all of those in 2x6, same as the walls. It required about 174 brackets, 4 nails per bracket, and then about half that in the number of boards that I had to put up. And that was a chore. One of the harder things that I had to do working out here was nailing all of those brackets. Yeah, a lot of respect to those guys that are out there swinging hammers all day long. Driving those 8D and then 12D nails into that treated lumber was a chore. I did have a scaffolding to aid me with that process, which was really nice because for the brackets, I didn't have to climb up and down a ladder and keep moving things. It had casters on the scaffold, so I was able to roll around, kind of keep hammering and keep moving. That process did take me a little over 2 weeks though. It's one of the harder things, several evenings out here just hammering away, but I finally got them done. I kept telling myself every bracket you put up, every board you put up is one you'll never get to do again, and that kept me going, kept me motivated, but that was one of the more challenging things to do. Next was the electrical, and that started with replacing the smaller panel that was there with a 200 amp 40 space panel. And then from there, I ended up running 3 50 amp 240 volt circuits, one for the welder, one for the oven, and then one extra close to the panel just for future expansion. And then I ran 3 40 amp 240 volt circuits, one for the air compressor that I'm using, one over in the metal area for a future expansion, and another one close to the panel, future expansion. Better to have it, do it while the walls are open. I also ran 5 20 amp receptacle circuits, so there are 20 boxes around the outside here, double gang 20 amp receptacle circuits. And then I ran 3 light circuits, 12 lights on the ceiling that are run by 2 main switches, and then 5 lights around the outside that are on independent switches. Depending on what area I'm in working, I can run that light on or off. Also, I put in some outdoor lights over on this end of the building. It really brightens the area up out here, and this will be the area that I work mainly in when it's dark and I need light outside. So very cool. Very happy with this. I wired up this little door light as well. I also have a flag light on the front of the building. I'm going to end up mounting the US flag out front there. I'll be making flag brackets here coming up, just a little easy project, some fun that we can do. And then I also ran 2 dedicated 20 amp circuits into my DC project box. And this is something we're going to have a lot of fun with over the future. I've already got some test LEDs hooked up using this Arduino board to power 2 individually addressable LED strips. I'll be building out this white box to use a bigger Arduino board and really connecting everything up. I'll make a series of videos when I do that, and I'm going to expand the LED lights that I have within the workshop here. Next up was the air lines. And the air lines, I used 3/4 inch HDPE aluminum core tubing. I thought the longevity, the fittings, compression fittings that are used on that tubing look really good. It all went in really well. I have 3 lines coming from the compressor. The main center line goes up through the ceiling and does a drop to an air reel there, and then it keeps going over to my general work area to a reel there. The second line I have coming over to my metalworking area with a hosed reel there that can both feed the sandblast cabinet and the plasma cutter in my Everlast welder 3-in-1 welder. So I'll be able to connect up to both there. And then the third line runs through the ceiling over to the paint area. There's a hose reel there as well. That will feed my powder coat machine, which requires only a few pounds of air. And then I can also use it to gun paint over in that area. So it's working really well. I didn't have my air compressor out here when I had everything open, but I used just a small air tank, connected it up, and then I just painted some Dawn detergent dish soap on the fittings to make sure everything was tight. I do like those fittings. It turned out really well, and I'm happy with that system so far. The next thing on the list was dust collection, and I have 2 areas of dust collection set up. One in the woodworking area. I'll have a bench in the middle there and have a hose drop. And then along the wall over there, I'll have a hose drop. They actually sent me the wrong pipe, so I ended up using this sewer pipe 6-inch to run through here, but it works. And then over here, I have another setup. Right there, I'll be next to the air compressor. I will be dropping another dust collector, and there will be one run coming out over here for the sandblaster. I like using a dust collector for that. It does a really good job. And then the other one actually comes over here into the paint corner. I'll eventually build a fake wall there, and I want to build an air draw system using some furnace filters. At this point, it was time for some heat. I had been working out here in the cold. It was freezing in December. We had some really cold stretches here, And I really wanted to get a wood stove installed. And I chose wood heat because I have so much property here and wood that I can keep after it. A good stove installation really starts with the stove pipe. And I'll be perfectly blunt, the stove pipe is 3 times as expensive as the stove. But if you invest in the right equipment, if you install it correctly, and you keep it clean, it is more than a lifetime investment. And I have double wall running all the way up from the stove through the ceiling, turns to stainless, goes through the roof and out the top. I have plenty of clearances. I did what they consider a Class A chimney installation. It has the attic shield, it has the roof shield, and all that good stuff. So a great system. I'll put the list of the products that I got here. Got them online, a really good company. They were really good to work with, and turned out to be a really clean installation. I think it works, it draws really well, and it'll last me a lifetime. The stove itself is an Ashley, it's a 2,500 square feet heating stove. It's been working great out here. Once the insulation was in, I was able to keep it in the high 60s. And now that the drywall is in, even this 35 by 50, 10-foot ceiling, I can keep it in the 70s easily by keeping the stove stoked up. So love it, I love the stove. It's great to be able to come out here and it to be nice and toasty, and of course, so there's nothing like wood heat. So I'm very excited, very happy with the wood stove. Next, the garage doors. And the building before had the sliding doors on both ends. I really wanted a drive-through shop to be able to pull things straight in and pull it right out. I did have help. This is one area that I absolutely got professionals out here. They put the doors in. It took them 3 days, about 2.5 days to do the work, and they look great. They're insulated doors. They have windows in the middle section here. They allow some more natural light in, but also have really good insulating capabilities. And I can't say enough about being able to drive through, not having to back things in. Even the gator, just being able to pull it in and out has been really nice. At this point, it was really into January, and I needed to get the rest of the insulation up. I had done some of the ceiling in December when I put the stove in, but I ended up finishing it out. I used R38 insulation on the ceiling and R19 on the walls, which is the 2x6 insulation. I'm very happy with it, like mentioned, with the wood stove, with it 20 degrees teens out there, wind chill 0. I can keep it in the 70s in here, which is very comfortable and almost too much when you're out here working. Finally, at this point, it had been several months, a lot of hard work, and I got to the drywall. This is the second area and final area that I had help with. I did get a great crew from local here. They came in about a week, had all of this drywall knocked out. They cut all the boxes nice and had it finished for paint. They did an awesome job. I will definitely use them again. I could finish drywall, but that's not an area that I wanted to spend a lot of time. And I'll be perfectly blunt, if I had to do all of the drywall myself, I would still be working on it. I wouldn't be sitting here today in my shop talking to you. Once that was in, I had to paint. It took 10 gallons of paint to coat this place. 35 by 50, 10-foot wall. I ended up painting it twice, but it ended up coming together well. You talk about some tired arms. I ended up painting it over a night and a day. Oh, that third day, it was rough. It was rough, but I got the job done. I had a lot of motivation to get the paint done, because that meant I could start actually moving some tools in. And that was the big prize at the end of this, really to start moving some tools in for them to find their final home out here in the workshop. So getting tools in, that was really a big milestone, being able to start getting stuff set up where they're supposed to go. really getting close to the point where I can start working on some restorations again. Very excited. I did end up getting internet out here, and I wanted to tell you quickly there. This is something that I just got finished up last week, and I ended up using the TP-Link system. What I did was I used the AX3000 external range extender on the outside of my workshop. That AX3000 external is picking up the Wi-Fi signal and boosting it. I'm using it as a range extender. I'm coming to that through the wall with a Cat5e cable into a PoE, Power over Ethernet, 5-port switch. That switch is providing power to that outdoor external unit, and it's also providing power and internet to this internal ceiling mount AX1000 router. All of this is tied together. I set it up through their app. It was very easy to install. You do have to set it up. I would be very close to your router when I do the setup, but I set them both up as range extenders, Wi-Fi extenders, and then I named both of these units the same SSID or Wi-Fi name as my main router. Now what happens when I come outside, it just shifts and I don't even notice it. And I have excellent service out here. I put the TV in over here so I can watch races, other things while I'm out here working, and it is working great. I can stream and it works flawlessly. I don't notice any dip in internet speed. So I really have great things to say about the TP-Link. Really appreciate the IT guy that put me onto it. It works phenomenally, and I would recommend that system to anyone that wants to get internet out into their metal building, because good luck getting a signal otherwise. That really brought me to the rest of the finishing that I'm not even complete with yet. I still have to get outlet covers. I am going to make those flag brackets that I mentioned earlier. I'll actually do a video there. Nice little welding and powder coat project to make sure I can get my American flag out front, and then I'm gonna put a pirate flag over here on the other side. I have another spot on the property where I had a flag up, but I need a better bracket. Those plastic brackets, they dry rot. So be a nice little welding project. I want to make a woodworking bench where the plastic bench is here right now. I'm going to make that, and I'll do a video on that. I'm going to make an insert for my DeWalt table saw, and then the other end, I'm going to make a router table that sits there. So I have that drop for dust collection that'll tie in to that center table there. It'll be a great woodworking spot, project planning spot. I'll be working on the dust collection in the paint area as well. I have a drop here, but I am planning almost a fake wall with some collection areas that use furnace filters to do some filtering. And when I put that all together here over the next couple weeks, I'll make sure and shoot some video and make a video of that. Even after that, before I can get back to the Wisconsin engine restoration, I've got my stand-up walk-behind beater mower, I'm calling it, that I am using to mow the property. I've got spark fuel and air, but I just can't get it running. It died on me last year towards the end of the season, so I need to take a look at that with spring coming up. It's probably a bent valve or maybe a sheared flywheel key. The timing might be off. So again, try to take some video there. I think that might be an interesting little project, fun to kind of get running quickly. And then I also want to do some lighting work on the Gator. And I'll take some video there. Pull some green LED accent lighting for some fun, but also a bar light and some other spotlights that I'll be able to use, especially in the winter time like now when it gets dark a lot earlier. Just a few more things to come before I can get back to my standard restorations. Maybe realistically 2 to 3 months. I will be posting some videos, as mentioned, of some smaller projects until then, just some random things I'm working on. But then hopefully get back to that Wisconsin engine and do my first real restoration out here in the new workshop. And that's it. That has been my past 6 months. I've really been after it out here nights and weekends to try to make this happen, to try to get back to what I love doing best, restoring old things. I hope you had a great Christmas. I hope you had a great New Year. And I hope you're able to keep after your goals these past several months. Keep the hammer down, keep after it, and I'll see you back here very soon.